Hello and welcome back to the Survivor's Guide to Life podcast. We've been gone for a little while, but we're back. Last time we were with you, this, by the way, is episode 132. Last time we introduced and screened our new video on Lynn's legacy, caring for the caregiver. It's an introductory video and also, we hope, a fundraising video to help bring in donations for our new program.
Very nice.
Since that time, a couple of things have happened. One, today we do want to share at least part of a series of articles that were just recently published in the AARP Bulletin from May on long-term care in America and caregiving, and some very key issues that we're aware of, and we're glad to see a little more awareness arising in national, local levels, government, and caregiver associations. And so we'll share some of that. But first, while we were away, Peter went to Florida to see his mom.
97 almost.
97. He was there for Mother's Day. And then also he spent some time visiting very good old friends in Colorado. And while traveling and meeting with caregivers and others, he observed some things that I think are similar to some of what we're seeing here in terms of disturbances and trouble for people.
Absolutely. It was interesting because the world that, when you go away for a while, one of the things is you get to see how the world is functioning. And it's different now. Since the pandemic, there's no question about it. There's a different flavor out there. People are more aggressive. A lot is coming to the surface that was being suppressed before. You see all of that. I wouldn't say at this point that we're all better off because of the impact of the pandemic.
No.
I don't see that. But it was interesting because a lot of the aggressiveness and stress is very high out there. But I met some nice people. Interestingly, a lot of them were caregivers. And it's not that I was seeking them, but that's what I ran into. And in the midst of all the turmoil and the insensitivities that people have to each other, which was a lot of that, these caregivers are a different breed, and they're inspiring. And I think we were attracted to each other or something.
Something was recognized between you, yes.
Yeah, and it was really sweet stuff. It was also very meaningful in the sense of hearing their struggles and what they're going through, struggles that we're aware of. But when you go to other parts of the country and you get to see what they're going through, it's a universal problem. I met a very lovely lady, I hope she's okay, and it is Barbara Greene. And Barbara is a caregiver in Florida, an exceptionally fine lady. And I saw her talking to a group of women. It was astounding because she was very inspiring to all these women. I thought she must have been a pastor or a psychologist.
Yeah.
I forgot. She's a caregiver.
Ah.
And very inspiring women. And the women were just writhing, and they were so touched by her and enjoying her. And she's a nice lady. Well, it turned out, I talked to her after it was all broken up, and I was amused watching it. But it turned out that she was a caregiver, and a very fine lady. She had talked about what she'd gone through for many years as a caregiver, and she didn't want to do it anymore.
Oh, she was taking a break.
Well, I hope it's only a break because she's a fine woman.
Yeah.
But what had happened, she'd worked with dementia patients, and as the disease progressed, they became dangerous, and she was hit really hard a couple of times.
She was injured. Yes.
She was injured.
Oh.
And then she saw the twists and the lies when they called the police, and then the patient claimed that she had been raped by the police. And anyway, Barbara was definitely deeply affected by it.
Yes.
But this is a fine woman, and we had a good talk. And I told her what we did. I showed the video, Lynn's legacy, and she says, "I haven't found anybody that advocates for us like you do. I haven't heard anybody talk like this for us." And she was right. Now, I don't know what other people are doing, but we have a passion for what we're doing. And then she says, and she introduced me to her daughter, and she says, "He is a psychologist. He is a professional." And I said, well,
you'd like to keep a low profile.
Yeah, and I said, it's more than that at this point. I mean, really, I've been doing that a long time, but there's a lot more to what I do now.
Yeah.
And it's not just being a psychologist. And I told her, it's funny, I could be a psychologist and professional for a long time, but when I became a caregiver for my wife and involved with others, it cut through all of that, I think, posturing that I didn't even know I was doing, and all the knowledge that I learned, and it brought me down to earth again about what was really important. And I feel that what I've learned is so precious. And that seems to have drawn people to me that are caregivers. And I really feel it. When I was with my mom in Florida, I know so many caregivers there that are good friends of mine, and hospice people. They're friends. And we have a network, I'm telling you, it's all over the country.
Yeah.
But they're special people. And we seem to not just feed off of each other, but fulfill each other. And it's an honest exchange that is uplifting and encouraging in a world of work that is, as one of our caregiver leaders, Maritha, says, it's a calling from God. It really is. Because people rise to a level of sacrifice and giving that most people don't
And
do.
selflessness. That's
Selflessness.
right. Yeah. This sounds like one of the things that we find so important in caregiving, and that is feeling as part of a team. And you might actually be working as a team with the client, the person you're caring for, or your team might be the people that you know, that just like you've created this community of people who are caregivers, and you know each other, and when you get in touch, you can be supportive and encouraging.
Absolutely, and I emphasize that because here, the more classic or standard caregiving design is working 24/7 by themselves in very difficult situations, setting themselves up for burnout, physical breakdowns. We've had a lot of friends all over the country, nurses, caregivers of all types, and the emotional depletion begins to affect them physically, and eventually they break down. It's happening in our very dedicated people in Florida. It's happening, friends of ours, that do great work. So and I told them what we're doing. We opened a gym next to the Institute, and it's really dedicated to caregivers and also debilitated clients.
And seniors.
Seniors.
Right.
And we find, I was there today before I do my regular macho workout. I go there for an hour, and it works great. We're doing some great stuff. But what motivated us was seeing the incredible depletion that happens to caregivers. You know what we talked about a lot with most of the people I met is how we tend to put ourselves aside and forget about taking care of ourselves because we're in the midst of dealing with such deteriorating situations and people that we care about. That it almost feels selfish that we want to take care of ourselves. And yet it's so essential.
We hear voices in our head saying, no, you can't do that. It's not time. It's not important enough. What if something bad happens and you were off doing something else, doubt and all of that.
Let me tell you something. It's not just us. Everybody I talk to tells me about that. And guess what they wind up doing? Neglecting themselves. Until they eventually, like Barbara got hit. But she was already burning out. You could hear it. She was exhausted. And we've seen it with so many. So, I mean, we want to use these podcasts as a voice of encouragement to reach out to many, many people who are involved in caregiving, families who need caregivers. There are so many families that are sacrificing, giving up their careers and their work prematurely in their lives so they can take care of their loved ones, understandably, and not getting paid and not having money.
That was in the article. One of the topics in the article were some statistics about that very thing.
$470 billion a year of unpaid caregivers are going on out there. 53 million of unpaid caregivers.
That's astounding.
And it's huge, and it's growing. And those that are getting paid are getting such substandard wages.
Almost not enough to live on.
Exactly. So they will go working for companies or fast food joints, whatever. They get paid better.
They can leave caregiving just to do fast food service and make more money.
And guess what? That's why there's such a shortage of good caregivers. That's one of the reasons.
Because it's so hard to do. So hard to do. You have to want to do it, even if you take a cut and pay.
And talking to this lady, Barbara, she introduced me to her daughter, who's an engineer, chemical engineer, works for CBS. Nice lady, real nice lady. And she saw her mother deteriorate, and also the families she's been involved in. And she says, caregiving can bankrupt a family. And she was, don't we know? I didn't go bankrupt, but I mean, we make a good salary, and I did not have enough money to pay all the caregivers and all the team.
They cover that in the article, and something we've known about, people know about, that there's this middle ground where if you have very, very little income, you can qualify for Medicaid, or here in California it's called Medi-Cal, and your income is very low. Or if you're one of the fortunate people who have sufficient income to really afford long-term care or in-home caregiving. But the vast majority of people is somewhere in the middle. Medicare doesn't cover it, and employers don't all have programs to help their employees stretch to cover this and make a living at the same time.
Well, they have certain programs. Interesting. I just read some of that, where there's a program. Excuse me. Where they're given 12 weeks of unpaid leave.
Yeah.
The 12 weeks is good. Unpaid, these people need their money.
Yeah.
And you're hearing things like this, but you know what you're also hearing? This is becoming a higher and higher priority. Mm-hmm. Even in legislation, they're developing new legislation, so there will be more money available for caregivers, and yet it's a kind of a thing that's in battle now.
It is.
And yet the need is growing exponentially. Yeah. So this latest article, I didn't want to go through it all with you.
And we can take more time. We can talk about it in another podcast too.
Yes, but they did speak of specifics, a lot of specifics about finance.
Yeah.
And it is important. We're very much in that race to raise money for a nonprofit for caregivers and families in need. We have to emphasize that now, because we can't deliver the goods, because we've run out of money in supporting caregivers and families in need before. So our outreach is getting much more prioritized at this point, that we've got to get the money in so we can help the families, so we can go out and do the training, and we're willing, more than willing. We have many
ready,
programs.
We want to do it, and it's something that most families who are caregiving or caregivers don't have enough money to really pay for it.
No, and part of our program is to subsidize that through, if we have to do training, to have the nonprofit subsidize us, and that we will donate 15% back of everything back into the fund.
We also want to be able to offer some respite care.
And
funds for respite care.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And respite care is self-care. We take a different approach in some ways. I think it's much more specific, because we've been experts and involved with trauma work for me it's over 50 years, but for Jenny it's a long time, for our other staff. And we realize the toll it takes, the energy that you have to give. And after a while, you become so depleted that it's very depressing. It's hard to get rolling, and you go from emotional depletion to eventually burnout, where you don't even want to do the work anymore. And that
can happen.
And we develop programs how to bring people back from burnout. But we really pay attention, or help people learn to pay attention to their bodies, and their bodies are registering all this negative energy that they're picking up. They're giving, but they're giving to people that are very depleted and in trouble. And after a while, not only are they absorbing it because they're empathetic caregivers, they're giving and they're not getting much back. So we're teaching people how to pay attention to their bodies, how to read what's going on, how that will lead to where they are emotionally, and that they do need to, we call it pushing the pause button. They will have to take care of their own emotional overload, no question. Can't ignore it. We teach people to pay closer attention so they'll be more resilient. Now, we learned that in many ways professionally, but we also learned it taking care of my wife, all of us. We had a team of 6 caregivers. Now, for us and for me, that just was a natural flow of giving. But you know what I discovered later is it's so unusual.
It's not what everyone puts together, no.
No, and it's also very, very expensive.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. But I didn't know that at the time, and I didn't care. But now that I reflect back on it, I realize we're proposing a very strong program that absolutely surpasses the standard caregiving design.
It does.
And there adds a support and a resilience that you don't get any other way.
Right.
So the podcast is one of our outreaches that we feel we wanted to reach as many people as possible to do this work and give them encouragement, to let them know they're not alone and that there's another way to formulate teams too. Use our podcasts. We're here for you. And we want to be. That we do a lot of other work to help people, but this is probably, at this point, for now and the future, our greatest priority. Because the need is growing, and we've been part of the journey of helping ones that we love, helping caregivers go through the experiences that they have. We've been called in as at times when the caregivers are actually being abused by their clients, and we've been called in because the caregivers don't want to protect themselves, and they need to.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been called in when sometimes they were being absolutely abused terribly. Yeah. And they didn't protect themselves, and they were just getting more and more bitter and angry and hurt because they're giving all the time. So we're called in at times to step in. Now, I have no problem with doing that, protecting the caregiver when I see what's going on, and Jenny's done it too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a pretty sight. And to see people give so much and then to be hurt and treated so badly, it's a tough one to see, and yet it happens a lot.
Well, that's what you were saying about Barbara Greene that you met in Florida.
Yeah,
it happened to her too.
Hi, Barbara. I hope you watch this.
Yeah.
And Heather, daughter.
Oh.
Yeah. Heather, at CVS, I want to break now that I mentioned your name.
Oh, yeah.
No, Heather's a smart woman.
Yeah.
And she's right there with her mother.
Yeah.
She's a nice lady. Yeah, they're wonderful. That was in the midst of Florida where it's all aggressive and people aren't that nice to each other.
Yeah.
Yet there are these caregivers that are angels. Most of them, I think, are Haitian and Jamaican that I met. Mm-hmm. They're angels in the midst of all of this.
Some of the hospice people working with your mom are angels too.
Oh.
I know that not every hospice organization is great, but she's part of one.
Oh, yeah.
You were part of one.
They have they're angels that work there, and it's the memory care facility. It's the last stage, and I watch them in awe. They think they're in awe of what we do.
Mm.
I watch what they do, and they do it
day
after day,
yeah,
with such love and patience and understanding.
Yeah,
it goes beyond human comprehension.
It is beyond human, isn't it?
And they do it.
We call it the extraordinary reality.
Oh, they're amazing. I think of the chaplains, Chaplain Stephen. Hi, Stephen. And Michael. And Tamar, who was a wonderful nurse, her body did break down, dedicated. Darlene, hi. I know she takes care. And Tamika. And Gerda, the nurse.
Yeah.
And Lennox. I met so many, I know them. And, I send them flowers on special occasions. They are so appreciative because they don't get the acknowledgement they deserve.
People don't always take the time.
No, and they do a great job with my mom. My mom at 97.
Yeah, how's she doing?
She's hanging in there. She's pretty sharp, and I shouldn't say this. They tell me on the phone when I talk how sweet she is, and I don't believe them. And I go, "Are you talking about my mother?" They are, and I got to say, she was just so sweet.
Yeah.
And it gave me a chance to connect with her in a loving way. She's very childlike in many ways now, very perceptive, but very childlike, and just to nurture her and touch her like a child, and it means everything to her. Yeah. So I was so glad to be with her. It was joyous and painful at the same time. And yet I watch how they take care of her. Remarkable. And I see how they take care of many others. So, and then I meet people on planes that are caregivers getting there. And then I go to Denver and I meet caregivers. I mean, it's happening all over. So they need a spokesman. They need advocates. I can hear it. And that's what I want.
We want to be that.
We and our team. And I honestly, you should meet the rest of our team. Some of them are on the latest video of Lynn's legacy. Every one of them is an incredible advocate that has been on the front lines. Yeah. Who has a passion just as much as I do. Yeah. So we want to put the word out to all of you. You can take a look at AARP's latest.
We want to wrap up now for our podcast. Called? This is the AARP Bulletin.
And there are so many articles.
Yeah.
On this, we're basically we're barely touching on them all.
Special report on long-term care in the May issue of the AARP Bulletin.
And there are many editorials in the newspapers, including the Wall Street Journal and New York Times, all week on the plate of caregivers and the
It's
families in
becoming
need.
more and more on the radar for everyone.
And it should.
Yeah.
It should.
Yeah.
So I hope that what we're offering you today is encouragement. We will be glad to offer you more specifics.
We'll come back to this.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
But it's been a while, and I've had quite a trip, and I've met a lot of good people. I was astounded that the ones that I did meet, most of them were caregivers. That just
It was a good coincidence.
yeah, they were the nicest people that I've
Refreshing
met along
part
the
of
way.
your
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jenny, take
I'm
it.
going to take it away. All
She's the
right?
performer. She's
So
good.
thank you. The Survivor's Guide to Life podcast is brought to you by Sonoma Coast Trauma Treatment, a 501c3 public charity, and we do rely on donations to keep us on the air. We are the survivorsguidetolife.com on Facebook and Instagram and all of the podcast outlets, and we have our own YouTube channel. Please watch, listen, like, share, all those good things. Peter and I can be reached at 707-781-3335 or Jenny at Bernstein Institute. And I think I've remembered everything, even
How
though I'm
about
a little
the
bit
latest
rusty.
video?
Oh, the latest video is on Lynn's Legacy Caring for the Caregiver YouTube page. Right at the top, you log in, it starts easy.
It's a beauty.
It is.
Beauty.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And we'll be back sooner than we were last time.
And we wish you all the best.
Yes.
We're right there with you. God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye.